give us one or two, three things that you did that really made an impact in terms of both shifting you out of the depression, but also like raising your self-esteem.
Right. Well, first of all, I realized at a certain point that the toxic had to stop here. That I had to, again, it's really, when you start working on your self-esteem, you have to be really, really courageous, because this work is not always going to be easy. I call it a regime. My book, it's Self-Esteem Regime, a regime being an organized way of doing things. So I knew I really had to get my thoughts in the proper order. I had to know that I was going to be my number one rah-rah session, because I wasn't going to be getting it from somewhere else. And therein lies the mirror work, right? When you start talking to yourself and doing the work in the mirror, that can be, it looks weird and it feels weird and it sounds weird and it's kind of gnarly in the beginning. But when you go up to yourself in the mirror, you can say the things that you want to say to yourself, even if it's, I'm really sorry. I'm sorry I let you down. I'm sorry that I put you through that pain. I'm sorry I didn't see the red flags beforehand. I'm sorry. You start to be more sympathetic with yourself. I think that's where you start to go, wait a minute, I don't have to be Superwoman all the time. I don't have to be perfect all the time. I have to, know that I am an imperfect being. I'm going to continue to be one. Nobody's perfect. And so put that on the plate, check, got that off the list. I'm not imperfect. And that, we don't have to be on top of our game all the time. The second thing was again, it's kind of in the same keeping was, self-care, learning to take the time to stop when you're in overflow, that I personally don't handle stress very well. I can take a certain point and then it's like the wiring goes a little off and people go, whoa, where did that come from? And this is what I know I need to, because I'm a workhorse. I'm 24/7. I will go. I work weekends. They're in a vacation. I don't know what that is. What's a vacation? Like, what's time off? I don't know. So, and I like it that way. That's okay. But I also know that I have to be mindful and check in with myself and say, stop. Okay, stop.
So is the stress response, do you find that that's like a trauma response when you go over your limit?
Yeah, it could be a trauma response. I think it might be also the way I'm wired. But yeah, trauma responses definitely are something that I also had to take a look at. And that was, if you push my button, if you anger me, if you make me feel, for example, if you make me feel obligated, right? That was the core. That was the bane of my existence, was obligation when I was in the natal house home. Everything was obligation. Had to, and had to be done at a certain time. So it was very regimented.
That's how you felt trapped.
Yeah, absolutely.
No.
And I'll tell you something else. And I've been in, relationships over the years. I've loved desperately, but I've never been married. And I think that also is something that I not because I don't want to and not because I wouldn't love to, but maybe it is because I'm creating those relationships that I know will go to a certain point and not beyond. I have to take a look at that as well.
Right, because that would trap you. Oh, very interesting, Clarissa. So there's a couple of things there that I wanted to point out to my listeners. So I talk occasionally on the podcast about the forgiveness practice that I teach, but also for our clients, I teach them this particular aspect of a forgiveness practice. And there's many forgiveness practices out there, but what I saw in how you were describing the mirror practice that you just talk about,
right.
I just want to connect the dots for people. She's forgiving herself. And that's such a key aspect in the forgiveness practice that I teach, because oftentimes people teach you have to forgive someone else, but it's so critical to forgive yourself for your part in it, whether it's the ignorance of being in a situation or the staying or the beating yourself up about it for the last 20 years or whatever you've been engaged with negatively with that situation. You have to recognize that you are at cause and personal responsibility for that aspect of it, not for other people, but for that aspect of it.
Exactly.
And when you're able to forgive yourself, that I personally think that's why we have such a hard time forgiving others, is that we can't forgive ourselves.
Well, it's an act of self-love.
Yeah, totally.
So, loving yourself, I think we've always been taught to love everybody else and take care of everybody else, especially us women. But very rarely has anybody ever said, now listen, don't forget to stop along the way and love yourself. Don't forget to stop along the way and do some self-care. Don't forget to stop along the way and pat yourself on the back. And the other thing is support systems, right? Who is it that we are surrounding ourselves with that really do support those efforts, right? That really are also patting you on the back. The rest of my last chapter in the book is reciprocal. And that was one of the toughest ones for me because there came a point where I'm such a goer, doer. And I'm the caretaker par excellence. But I think one day I stopped and said, damn it, I feel like I'm always doing something for everybody else. But when it comes time for me, where is everybody? And it was a shitty thing to say, but I said it because I was really feeling frustrated in the moment. And somebody in the room said to me, Clarissa, it's really hard to give to you. It's really hard to do for you. Perception being you are everything, you got everything, you do everything. The perception of you in your totality is so scary for other people that they don't know what to do for you. And I really took a deeper look at that. And again, softened some of those corners, those edges that needed to be softened, and allowed people to be able to give, whether it be a compliment or a gift or some help. Be very, very mindful about you and how if you can lock in how others perceive you, and then work on the negative, the not so pleasant aspects, let's say. That's huge. It's a home run.
Huge. Yeah.